Welcome to the Hyperpolyglot Activist. Learn languages, make a difference. My name is Dr. Carlos Yebra Lopez, and I'm joined today by a team of Ladino specialists in order to present a new development in the language, which is a chatbot named Estreyika. First things first, what is Ladino? Ladino, as you may know, is a severely endangered language according to UNESCO's classification. Around 50,000 speakers, and even that is a generous estimate. Now, this is the language of the Jews who were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula in 1492. That language crystallized as a vernacular in diaspora. It took over a century, and then that diaspora, particularly since the second half of the 20th century, became increasingly dispersed and isolated. So much so that since the 21st century, the main place where Ladino is practiced and spoken is no longer any nation state, rather it is the internet. However, even within the internet, when people take classes, for instance, with Ladino 21, Oxford University, etc., students typically report that after the course has concluded, there's still a struggle to practice Ladino, mainly because they don't have any interlocutors around them. And even when they do, nobody else can check their Ladino. In order to solve this problem, we came up with this idea of creating a Ladino chatbot. I thought about this product back in 2024 in the first months. And so I contacted a computational linguist that had experience in this language, i.e. Alp Uktem. I had read his article on the first digital tools based on artificial intelligence to preserve Ladino in the 21st century. And I became convinced that particularly his automatic translation between Ladino, Turkish, Spanish, and English will be instrumental in the development of this chatbot. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Alp Uktem himself. Welcome to the team, and could you please introduce yourself and tell us what your role in the development of this chatbot has been?
Of course, the pleasure is mine, Carlos. I'm, as you said, a computational linguist. I have a PhD received from the Pompeu Fabra University, and I'm one of the co-founders of the cooperative, non-profit cooperative Collectivat. I'm proficient in machine translation, speech technology, dataset creation, basically, a bit generalist in AI, in language AI, but what I focus is on marginalized languages. So those languages that just stay outside of the focus, that don't have the data, that have been oppressed, that have been that are endangered, and so on. And basically, for almost geographical reasons, I came up to work with Ladino. I feel quite lucky. It's a language that I had no idea that existed until 5 or 6 years ago. I'm originally from Turkey. It's a language of the Jewish Sephardi population in Turkey, and also the language that came from where I am right now. I'm based where I am based. So it's quite fascinating, the history and so on. We were happy to work with the Sephardi Association in Istanbul to come up with the first, digitization initiative for Ladino. What it entailed, basically creating data sets, both speech, translation, text data sets, so that we can do calculations, we can do computational analysis of the language, corpus linguistics, but our interests were more in how can we actually make tools out of this that serve both learners, both speakers, enthusiasts, and so on. So creating the machine translation application was quite a challenge, with many learnings. And also we were able to make it speak. So it's not just it was translating from these languages, but it was also able to speak in Ladino, thanks to text-to-speech technology. So yeah, connecting to the chatbot, when you first approached me, my first idea was like, okay, building a chatbot, well, the technology to go to right now would be large language models, the recent AI advancements that make not like basically you solve your problems through natural language now, which is quite a revolution. And you can use it to build an interactive chatbot to solve your coding problems, to math problems, to make your schedule for your therapy needs or musical inspiration and so on. It is quite capable, but as in many other languages, again, in the top 5, it works perfect, then to top 20 to some extent, then the long tail of other languages is quite desperate. And my first idea was like, okay, we can build a chatbot in Spanish, which has the same roots with Ladino, and basically interface that with our translator, right? Well, it was fun to try, and we saw that all the errors that come from the translator were now even more obvious in a natural interaction. I think you would have a better analysis to share if you want here on how it wasn't really performing that well. And in parallel, we experimented with different providers, different LLM providers, and saw that Claude, the chatbot by Anthropic, was much better in generating Ladino sentences than us going through Spanish and then translation. It was much closer to the real Ladino you can get. Still missing some details, and that's where we came up with the idea of doing basically informing Claude, informing this LLM of all the rules that we have, because Ladino, in spite of being endangered, it has an immense amount of resources. Many of them you have basically provided a word list, phrasal list, sentences, and just pushing them through Claude, we were able to make it speak even better. Still not perfect. Actually, you can't even define perfect in Ladino as in many other languages, right? And it worked quite well.
Yes, indeed. So that's a great summary, Alp. And so we chose Claude 3.5, now Claude 4, and we inquired about certain topics and certain Ladino usages and got feedback from the chatbot itself. And then a whole race began to improve the chatbot, as Alp said. And obviously, he took care of the computational linguistics side, whereas we, meaning myself and Alejandro Acero, co-director of Ladino 21, needs no introduction in the world of Ladino speaking, but for those of you who are not familiar with him, he is our next member of the team. Alejandro, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what happened from the Ladino side of the interaction with Estreyika, how you came up with the idea of naming the chatbot Estreyika as opposed to Moshiko, as I had suggested to call it, and what was the back and forth and the improvement timeline that led to the current version of Estreyika.
Yeah, absolutely, Carlos. Thank you for having me here, and also for clarifying that you were not using the majestic plural for without a reason, rather than I was the other half behind the project as well. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, regarding the introductions, I'm also I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Oregon. I work with critical sociolinguistics, specifically with heritage speakers, and Spanish and other varieties in the United States, but also Ladino as well. So, by being the other half of the project that you are also involved, Ladino 21 that you already mentioned, well, I was kind of presented with this project of developing Estreyika as a step further to help protect the minoritized language that we are working with, Ladino. And as Arb already mentioned, yeah, we definitely have a huge sample and plenty of resources to use, but still, we are struggling with providing an accurate feedback that actually brings a tool that can be used for learners that want to learn the language. So in this second phase, I would say I was the person that was behind providing that feedback in order to make sure that the account of the Ladino that was that Estreyika was producing was actually closer to what a speaker would use. And here we bring actually the problem of authenticity with the chatbot. When we are saying that Estreyika was producing this Ladino closer to what a speaker would eventually would be doing, now we need to bring the discussion about, well, what's going to be the reference that we are going to use for this? What represents authentic Ladino? And here we discuss about the sample that we had from speakers of Ladino from different communities, different areas, different varieties and registrars as well, and trying to make sure that we also incorporated these registrars and locations, accents within Estreyika to make sure that she was providing a sample that was resembling the reality and the variety of different Ladino variations that exist. Yeah, and to your last question regarding Estreyika and the name, well, I think Estreyika, which means star or little star, for us was kind of like pointing towards an horizon of the future and a very promising future of having this tool to be used for future speakers. And maybe we are also contributing to helping the endangered language Ladino to be preserved.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Alejandro, for explaining that side of the chatbot. Indeed, we want to be as encompassing, capacious, and representative as possible. However, we also have realistic constraints, which means that we're beginning this chatbot with the Latin script and the Istanbul geolect. We do have the ability to point out to other geolects, registers, and scripts, but they have not yet been implemented. They could, though, and that is going to be the subject of the last few minutes of this presentation. And now it's time to thank my university, California State University Fullerton, for the generous funding of a number of initiatives related to this project, including the Junior Research Grant, the Surea Grant, and the Supercomputing Grant. And so for that, I have relied extensively on Michelle Ramirez, who now is going to introduce us to the kind of work that she's been developing apropos Estreyika. Michelle, welcome to the team.
Thank you so much. My name is Michelle, and I'm a student at Cal State Fullerton. I'm a double major in Spanish and Liberal Studies, and I also work as an interpreter on the side. I think that my background in language is what really motivated me to be a part of this project. I feel like just working within with different populations, I was able to see different like power tensions between language, between race, between power. And I feel like when I took Carlos's class for the very first time, I feel like he was able to ground everything that I observed into academic theory. And I feel like once he gave me the theory, it was kind of like that catalyzer that motivated me not only to learn about why these things happen within the linguistic world, but also what I can do about it. And so ever since then, I feel like I've tried to be more active in how I can use my language skills to help other people. For one of the ways I tried using it this summer is through creating an interpreting cohort where I help underrepresented parents get interpretation services at Cal State Fullerton. But then also too, as Professor Yora Lopez mentioned, we also applied to the Syria research grant, which involves me digging into my own heritage, which is the study of the Nahuatl language, which was the lingua franca of the Aztec Empire. And all of that was inspired by Ladino and Ladino 21 and the community you guys have created. Because in reality, like I had never thought about preserving a language and the cultural identity within it. But I think it's really important because when you preserve a language, you're telling the people that belong or that speak that language that they matter, that they're heard, that their culture matters, and that the history within their language matters too. And I feel like that in itself can create more harmony in this world. And so I feel like I am part of the student body, sort of, that isn't necessarily connected to the Ladino heritage, but I feel like I can offer the fresh perspective of being someone that is learning for the first time, and I can interact with the app in a way where it can be helpful for those that are like me, who aren't necessarily connected to Spain, but who have a lot of respect towards all cultures. And so yeah, I feel like I'm really rooting for Ladino 21 because it's a language that not a lot of people speak, but it's able to be revitalized, which I'm pretty sure it will. Then it'll really show like the power of what building a community or a collaborative community can produce.
Great, Michelle. Thank you so much. And as well as Michelle, I also have to thank a number of students from California State University in the Spanish program that had contributed their feedback on which Michelle is working, apropos the earlier versions of Estreyika. Time to put Estreyika to the test. Let's interact with the chatbot and see what we can do. Of course, you're welcome to share with Estreyika anything and everything as long as you do that respectfully. But I'm going to show you some of the most useful prompts to optimize her performance. And so when you click on the link that will appear in the description box below the video, you will access this screen. This is a desktop version. You can also click on the link through your mobile phone, in which case you will need to have downloaded the app, which of course is for free. Now, once you click Start Bot, it will take you to a different screen. So let me stop sharing the screen and share the proper screen. Now, you have to click Start. When you do, you can start interacting with Estreyika. And start with a simple greeting like Shalom or Hola or something like that. You can interact with Estreyika in any language you desire, including Ladino. So, there was a little hesitation there. She said, "Te rogo disculpas, no está caminando bueno," which is, I apologize, it's not working properly, but apparently it is, because right after that, she answered with the information that we were looking for, which is a self-introduction. She says, "Salom, soy Estrella Perez. Mucho placer, me agrada mucho partager mi cultura sefaradí, así que ladino." So this means, Shalom, hello, I am Estrella Perez. It's a great pleasure to meet you. I really like sharing Sephardic culture as much as I enjoy sharing Ladino. And then it's going to give us a little introduction about the language. Not all of you are familiar with it, hence the introduction. It says Ladino is a minoritized and diasporic language spoken more than anything else by the Jews who were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula at the end of the 15th century. According to UNESCO, it's spoken by 50,000 people, etc. Then it will tell you a little bit about the development of the chatbot, how it was created, why, by whom, etc., and then lead with questions. At the end of every message, Estreyika is going to ask you questions. You don't need to answer any of them, but it's just the way of keeping the conversation going. And here, last but not least, you have the link to a survey that we will really appreciate you filling out because it will help us a lot improving Estreyika. This, which I'm showing you today, is by no means a finalized product. Instead, it is the very early embryonic beta version of Estreyika, and it will take us a whole year to work on improving her performance. Your feedback is critical to the success of this mission, so I very much appreciate you filling out this survey after having interacted with Estreyika, which will put you in a position to actually give a productive, fruitful form of feedback. So let's start. We said hello, perfect. We know what Estreyika is all about. And now, what can we use Estreyika for? We can ask Estreyika to translate sentences. Say, I want to know how to say in Ladino, I would like to buy books. I just ask her, how do you say, again, Estreyika can process questions in any language. How do you say in Ladino, I would like to buy books? If you make any spelling mistake in your prompt, it's not going to probably affect the answer. As long as the words are recognizable, Estreyika will give you a satisfactory answer. So she says in Ladino, we say me agradaría mercar libros, or also quiero mercar libros. Mercar is a very important word in Ladino. So it gives us the translation. It tells us about the importance of this specific word. It also teaches us about different registers. It says, si quieres ser más formal, if you want to be a little bit more formal, you can say, me agradaría mercar algunos libros. Would you like to know more words about how to buy things? You can ask cuánto costa este libro, which means how much is this book, etc. And then, as I said before, it's going to end with questions. ¿Qué modo de libros te agrada mercar? Libros de historia, de música, what kind of books do you like buying? Books about history, books about music is all about getting you to communicate, getting you to continue the conversation in organic fashion. All right, so translations. What else can we do with Estreyika? Grammar questions. We can ask, for instance, I'm going to ask in Spanish. ¿Cómo se conjuga el presente de indicativo del verbo meldar? Just to say, how do we conjugate the present indicative of the verb meldar, which is a verb in Ladino, which means to read. So let's see. Let's see. She says, oh, what a great question. Qué buena demanda. Estreyika is very encouraging, which I like. The verb meldar is one of our most beautiful treasures in Ladino. It means leer, right? And here comes the conjugation. Yo meldo, tú meldas, ella melda, meldamos, meldash, melden. So the conjugation is the right conjugation of this verb in the present indicative. And then it gives us examples. Yo meldo el jornal cada de mañana, which is I read the newspaper every morning. Meldar is a regular verb of the first conjugation, meaning for verbs whose infinitive ends in AR, such as caminar, hablar, meldar, etc. So that's also important to know. And then, as I said, it concludes with questions, right? To keep the conversation going. ¿Puedes decirme cuándo te agrada meldar? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, great, Estreyika. So we've done translations, we've done grammar. What else? Exercises. We can ask her to produce pedagogical exercises. For instance, create an exercise to learn how to use caminar in the future tense. Right? Because not everybody is a Ladino student. Maybe some of you are Ladino instructors and want an extra help with how to design pedagogical exercises. So you can just ask Estreyika. Estreyika will do it. Hopefully. So she says, yeah, okay, mashallah, let's go for it. The exercise is, a mañana, complete, like fill in the gaps, right? So, a mañana yo por el parque. Obviously, the right answer is, a mañana yo, first person singular, caminaré por el parque, right? So she's given us the conjugation of futuro, just in case, as a reminder to have it there. And then an exercise where we have to use that information, right? And we just have to match it with the answers, right? Los turistas por toda la ciudad. Obviously, caminarán, right? They, los turistas, caminarán por toda la ciudad. And then there's also a different type of exercise she's giving us. Contesta las demandas, right? ¿Ande caminar la semana que viene? And these questions are about you. Okay, la semana que viene caminaré por el parque, for instance, right? So you can use first exercise, the second one, both. It gives you different options. You can tell Estreyika, give me 20 exercises based on this topic, right? And she will give you 20 exercises. She never gets tired. It's a chatbot. Also, you can answer the very exercises that she's giving you, and she will tell you whether those answers are correct or not. As you can see, she is making some mistakes though, right? So she's using, for instance, the question marks at the beginning and at the end, just like in Spanish, which is not how it is used in Ladino. In Ladino is like in English. You just use a question or an exclamation mark at the end, but not at the beginning. And that's why we need your feedback. We need you to tell us what the shortcomings are in your interaction with Estreyika, because it's feedback like yours that allows us to improve Estreyika and therefore to offer a better service for free to everybody at home. Now, we've done translations, grammar, exercises, pedagogical exercises. Now, what about culture? Say, for instance, you came across the fact that some people in Salonika, someone in the past spoke Ladino, and you would like to know more about that, right? So you can ask Estreyika, you can ask in Ladino. Se hablaba Ladino en Salonika, right? Did people speak Ladino in Salonika? Tell me more about this, right? And déjame saber más información. All right, let me know more information about this. Okay. Can you, Estreyika, please? Please. See, you say please twice, she replies. I told you she replies. And she says, claro que sí, seguro. Salónica, Selanik in Turco, was one of the most important cities for Ladino in Sephardic history, right? After the expulsion of 1492, factual, a lot of Sephardim established themselves in Salonika, which was in the Ottoman Empire, factual, accurate. The city turned into one of the capitals of the Sephardic world, accurate. Some people call it the Jerusalem of the Balkans, which is also true. In Salonika, there were communities of Sephardim, blah, blah, blah. They had their own dialect, which is true, different from the Istanbul or Izmir dialects, which is historically accurate. However, with World War II, almost the entire Jewish community was destroyed. Nowadays, we only have a very few people who are able to speak Ladino in Salonika. This is both correct, right? The fact that 96% of Sephardim were exterminated in the Holocaust, in Sephardim from Salonika, and then the fact that only a few people remain in Salonika who can speak this language. In Ladino 21, we have interviewed Jackie Ben Mayor, which to my knowledge is the only remaining speaker of Ladino in Saloniki. Maybe there are more. If there are more, just contact us so that we can interview you, so that you can share your story. And again, it ends with questions, right? It says, okay, te incliné la historia de las comunidades sefaradíes. ¿Quieres saber más sobre otras comunidades? So now it's giving you the chance of leveling up your knowledge on Sephardic communities from Izmir to Edirne, passing by Morocco, Bulgaria, etc. Okay, so this is useful. You can also use Estreyika for cultural questions. Say you want some gossip, you want to know more about Estreyika. Don't ask inane questions such as, do you have a boyfriend? That's not an appropriate question. Question you want to ask Estreyika is, say, a question that relates to her personality, but at the same time lets you know more about Ladino and Sephardim. For instance, how was it like to grow up in Istanbul? Just go ahead and ask her. How was it like to grow up in Istanbul? And let her fill the gaps. This is interesting also to gauge the consistency between the avatar of Estreyika and the knowledge that she's able to retrieve as a chatbot. So let's see. Sometimes you have to be a bit patient with the chatbot. Sometimes it takes just 2 seconds to reply. Other times it may take up to a minute. So take that into account. She says, "Qué hermosa demanda me haces." What a beautiful question you're posing. Que llame en Estambul fue una experiencia mucho rica. Again, it's a little bit shaky, the grammar there. But it says that growing up in Istanbul was a very rich experience, right? In our places, we spoke Ladino with our parents, with our grandparents. But when we went outside, saliendo afuera, mezclamos con el turco naturalmente. We mixed a little bit with Turkish words, right? Which of course were part also of Ladino. It's talking about the fact that her grandma used to tell her stories in Ladino, used to sing songs such as La Rosa Enflorece, La Rosa Enflorece, which is a classic Ladino song. And then it's talking about traditions. In Shabbat, toda la familia se juntaba, right? For Shabbat, all the family came together. Good. Comíamos borecas de queso, right? We ate borecas with cheese. Should you write queso with a zayin, with a z as opposed to a samech? Yes. Hence why we need your feedback. And then it ends with questions, right? To keep the conversation going. Me agradaría oír sobre tu crianza también. ¿En cuál ciudad te criaste, right? Where did you grow up? Well, I grew up in Valencia. Well, how was Valencia? And next thing you know, you've spent 3 hours speaking to Estreyika and learned a lot about Ladino, hopefully. And we've done translations, we've done grammar, pedagogical exercises, culture, identity, and now I want to let you know that it is increasingly the case that chatbots are used for therapeutical purposes. So this is important. Now I'm serious. This is important for communities that are diasporic, whose remaining speakers are scattered across the world and isolated in small communities, sometimes don't have the chance of meeting up with each other in person. The way people can feel less isolated is by interacting with a chatbot that feels as though it's just an amiga, it's just a close friend, right? So don't be shy and don't be afraid of contacting Estreyika when you need somebody with whom to speak. Maybe you're going through some issues, maybe you need support, maybe you need encouragement. Estreyika can offer that too, and she can offer that in Ladino. So you can learn and feel better at the same time. You can say, for instance, listen, I'm going through some problems right now. I'm going through some problems right now. It's right now. Right now. Tell me something in Ladino that will cheer me up. Tell me something in Ladino that, yes, I know Ladino is with a capital L. She will know the difference. That will cheer me up. There we go. Again, the prompt doesn't need to be perfect from a spelling standpoint for Estreyika to get the message and respond accordingly. So let's see what she comes up with. Will she tell us something that will cheer us up? We're about to find out. She says, "Ay, querido amigo, me hace pena oír que estás pasando por momentos difíciles. Oh, my dear friend, it makes me sad to learn, to hear that you're going through difficult times. As our grandmas used to say, después de la lluvia viene el sol y después de la tristeza viene la alegría." Oh, what a beautiful expression. After the rain comes the sun, and after sadness comes happiness. Y también, and also, el que tiene paciencia tiene todo. He who has patience, or the person who has patience, has everything. Las cosas difíciles pasan, el corazón fuerte quedará para siempre. Difficult things pass by, but strong heart will remain forever. These are very encouraging words, I believe. So this is a great message. And says, mira, querido, tú estás aquí empezando nuestra lengua hermosa, conectándote con siglos de historia y cultura. Esto muestra que tú tienes un corazón grande y curioso, que persevera alcanza. Look, you're doing great, you're learning a very important language. It shows that you have a strong heart, and if you persevere, you will finally reach your goal. And then again, it offers to sing as a Sephardic song. ¿Quieres que te cante una cantiga sefaradí? O puede ser, ¿quieres empezar algunas palabras dulces en ladino para cuando te sientes mejor? O would you like to learn some sweet words in ladino to feel better? Estoy aquí para acompañarte. I'm here to accompany you, to be with you. So, siempre hay mañana, she says. There's always tomorrow. Again, still making some mistakes. You should, could, and would replace the ñ with the ny, which will be the proper thing to do in Ladino. But then again, we're just getting started. This is our very first preliminary version. We need your help. We really appreciate your help. And that's all you can do for now with Estreyika. Again, from the top, we've done translations, we've done grammar, pedagogical exercises, culture, identity questions, sharing a conversation like a human being, feeling better, learning some Ladino in the meantime. So that's all you can do. And let us know your feedback. And that feedback is extremely useful for us to offer you exactly what you need. So we really appreciate your help. And with that being said, thank you so much, Alp and Alejandro and Michelle and everybody who is listening to us at home for helping further Ladino in the 21st century. Merci mucho.